There is a quiet, unfolding crisis inside America's immigration detention centers, and most of the countries never sees it. No viral footage, no nightly countdown, just people held for months, sometimes years, inside facilities that federal standards say must be humane, safe, and temporary. But reporters are coming out right now telling a different story: overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, detainees with no clear timelines for release, families who don't know when or if they'll see each other again. This isn't border story. This is a human rights story happening inside the United States. New reportings describe detention centers where immigrants are confined far longer than the public assumes is normal. Some detainees are being held well beyond the time frames our immigration law envisioned for civil detentions, not criminal punishment. Investigators and legal advocates are describing the conditions that include overcrowded dorms, inconsistent access to medical care, spoiled food, infestations, and facilities struggling to meet even basic sanitation standards, as you can see depicted in these images. What makes this legally significant is that immigration detention is not supposed to be punitive. Under US law, these facilities are meant to hold people temporarily while their civil immigration cases move forward. But civil detentions has become prolonged and indefinite, begins to resemble punishment without trial. That is where constitutional concerns are emerging, specifically around due process that we spoke about severally on this channel. So the government authorities to detain migrants does exist. The question is how long, under what condition, and what the safeguards. Federal standards require access to medical care, adequate food, hygiene, and legal access. And the images that we see that come out secretly by reporters is nothing that depicts anything that's humane. On paper, these are called performance-based standards. In reality, enforcement varies widely by facilities, contractors, and regions. So legal advocates argue that these prolonged detentions without any meaningful individualized review is risking and is violating the due process protection that any human has the right to. Now, this isn't about open borders versus enforcement. This is about whether civil detentions has quietly turned into this indefinite holding system where people wait in limbo while their cases crawl through an overwhelmed court system. And we're seeing this if you search the internet, if you search on YouTube, you're going to see multiple people who are telling their stories after being released. Like, this is inhumane, right? Every statistic is a person whose life is paused. Families report loved one losing weight, suffering panic attacks, or falling into depression while being detained. Attorneys describe clients who miss critical deadlines because they cannot access legal materials. We know former detainees describe the mental toll of not knowing when their confinement will end. Now, on social media, former detainees and immigration attorneys are posting first-hand accounts, right? Some describe people being held after their asylum screening were completed. Others describe people who won bond hearings but remain detained due to administrative delays, right? So these posts are circulating widely because they put faces to the system most Americans never see. The surge's prolonged detention is tied to backlogged immigration courts, stricter enforcement priorities, and facilities stretch beyond capacity. The system was not designed for sustained large-scale civil confinement. It was not. Yet, that is what has become. Human rights groups warn that when detention becomes routine instead of exceptional, abuse becomes easier to ignore. Now, accountability does not mean abandoning immigration enforcement. It means enforcing standards inside detention centers with real consequences for violations. It means meaningful bond hearings. It means ensuring detention is truly temporary, and it means transparency, allowing journalists, inspectors, and independent monitor to access these facilities so the public can see what is really being done in those in its name. Now, this isn't story about borders. It's about whether a civil system quietly becomes a shadow prison system, which it is. prison system, right? And whether the country is willing to look directly at what prolonged detention is doing to human beings, right? This is, I feel like, Holocaust, okay? Being held, confined, detained, and you have no say in when and how you will ever be released to see your loved ones. So stay informed, stay safe. I will leave you in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. What are your thoughts on these detention centers that is being held in America? Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi amanillah.